The rain-slicked streets gleamed like glass beneath the dim glow of the city lights, and I could still hear the sound of his footsteps ahead of me, sharp and relentless. They echoed in my chest like a second heartbeat, quickening every time he turned a corner, every time he dared to put a little more distance between us. He didn't stop, and neither did I, because something deeper than reason was pulling me forward. It wasn't just adrenaline, though there was plenty of that burning through my veins. It wasn't just instinct, though that had sparked the chase in the first place. It was something else, something magnetic and dangerous, as if my body had already made a decision my mind had yet to accept. I wasn't going to let him go. The air smelled of wet pavement and faint gasoline, heavy and sharp in my lungs. I could barely feel the rain anymore, though I knew it clung to my clothes and dripped into my hair. My shoes slapped against the ground, chasing his rhythm, matching him like we were connected by an invisible tether. He moved with a purpose I couldn't name, but I felt it all the same. Every movement he made told me I had to follow. Every glance he didn't throw back reminded me he knew I would. When he cut suddenly into a narrow alley, I hesitated for a fraction of a second, long enough to know I had a choice. I could stop there, let the night swallow him, return to my world and forget this reckless pursuit. But the thought made my chest ache, a dull hollow pain I couldn't ignore. So I turned in after him, my body slipping into the dark passage like it belonged there. The alley was slick, brick walls closing in, litter shining wetly on the ground. He stopped at the far end, his hand braced against the wall, breath visible in the cold night air. Slowly, he turned, and for the first time since this chase began, his eyes met mine. I had expected anger, or maybe desperation, but what I saw instead froze me in place, a heat that had nothing to do with running. His chest rose and fell rapidly, rain dripping down his jawline, his lips parted as if he had been about to say my name but thought better of it. "You should have stopped," he said finally, his voice low and rough, carrying more than just exhaustion. I stepped closer, my pulse thrumming in my ears. "So should you." The words hung in the air between us, heavier than the rain, sharper than the shadows. And something shifted then, subtle and undeniable, as if the chase had never been about the streets or the distance between us. It had always been about this moment, this electric tension that made my body forget the cold and the ache in my lungs. I could see it in his eyes now, the same pull I felt, the same refusal to stop, even when reason screamed at us both. He didn't move back when I closed the space between us, and I didn't stop when I should have. We stood close enough for the heat of his breath to mix with mine, for the scent of rain and skin to cloud out everything else. The silence between us was heavy, but it wasn't empty. It was charged, humming with something unspoken that vibrated through the air. He held my gaze as though daring me to look away, but I didn't. I couldn't. The rain slicking down our faces blurred the lines between us, as if the world was dissolving and only this narrow alley, only the two of us, still existed. He shifted his weight, his shoulders broad and tense beneath the soaked fabric of his shirt, and I saw the way the water clung to him, outlining every line of muscle, every movement of his chest as he breathed. My throat tightened, not from the run but from the sudden awareness of how close I was to him, how close I wanted to be. "Why are you following me?" he asked finally. His voice wasn't sharp now, but low, almost resigned, as if he already knew the answer and wanted to hear me say it. I swallowed, my pulse racing faster than it had during the chase. "Because I couldn't let you go." The honesty slipped out before I could stop it, and it hung there, raw and undeniable. For a moment, his expression softened, the edges of his jaw easing as if my words had struck something deep inside him. Then he took a slow step toward me, and I felt the ground tilt, my body tightening with anticipation. I didn't step back. I didn't even breathe. The rain pattered harder, drops running into my eyes, but I didn't dare look away from him. He was close now, so close that I could see the faint scar at the corner of his eyebrow, the way his pupils darkened as they locked onto mine. "You're reckless," he murmured, almost to himself, but his tone was more admiration than accusation. "And you're impossible to ignore," I answered, surprising myself again with the boldness in my voice. That was all it took. The last thread of restraint snapped, and suddenly he was pulling me against him, the heat of his body overwhelming the chill of the rain. His mouth found mine with a hunger that stole the air from my lungs, fierce and desperate, as though the chase hadn't ended but simply transformed into something else. My hands rose without thought, gripping his shoulders, feeling the hard strength beneath wet fabric. His kiss was rough at first, almost defiant, but it melted quickly into something deeper, something that made my knees weaken and my chest ache with longing. When we finally broke apart, both of us were breathing hard, not from running but from the fire ignited between us. He rested his forehead against mine, water dripping from his hair onto my skin. "I shouldn't have let this happen," he whispered, but his hand stayed firm on my waist, his touch betraying every word. "Then don't stop," I whispered back, the words trembling out of me like a plea, like a command. For a heartbeat, the world was silent except for the rain. Then his lips were on mine again, slower this time, lingering, exploring. The kiss deepened, his mouth moving with deliberate heat, and I felt myself leaning into him, surrendering to the storm we had both unleashed.